Do you remember your sex education? Was it helpful to you? Was it filled with scientific information rather than real, practical advice? I'm Diggory Waite, and this is The Real Sex Education. Every other week, I'll be posing sex questions, busting sex myths, and opening up our mailbox to answer your relationship conundrums. But in order to do this, I need an expert. A sexpert, if you will. But the only sex and relationship therapist I know is my mum. Hello, Mum.
Hello, Diggs.
Hello and welcome to The Real Sex Education. I'm Diggory Waite and I'm joined as ever by accredited sex and relationship therapist Cate Campbell. Hello, Mum.
Hello, Diggs.
In this podcast, we don't like to keep Mum's expertise to ourselves, and that's why we're going to be answering a couple of your sex and relationship questions that you submitted to us here at podcast@hatchet.com and via our Instagram and Twitter accounts. We're at RealSexEdPod there. Those particular couple of questions are about someone getting labiaplasty, which, don't worry, Mum will explain what that is later, and a question from a young man about how he can last longer in bed. So do stay tuned for that. And Mum, maybe start thinking of some answers for those. But before that, we're going to talk about daddy issues.
Ooh.
Have you heard of daddy issues?
Yeah.
What are they?
Well, we're either talking about somebody who's very, very interested in older men and being looked after, or, and this may also go hand in hand with it, we're talking about people who have issues relating to their childhood. And their relationship with their father, which interferes with their relationships now. Would that be fair?
I think that's right. And I did some of my own look online, and there was something that jumped at me straight away.
Ooh.
Because some people try to take this quite seriously. Because I think a lot of people just say, oh, she's got daddy issues. That's why she says daddy in the bedroom. That's why she dates older men. That's why she does this, she does that. But they say maybe they had a strained or non-existent relationship with their father, leading to different attachment styles. And I know you like your attachment styles. So can I quickly ask you, what is an attachment style? So
it's the way we relate to people. So there are different ways of conducting intimate relationships. And so when we're in an intimate relationship or in a close relationship, then our attachment styles will become more obvious. So some people's attachment styles are obvious all the time. But most people, you would really notice them when they're in a close relationship. And there are certain features of people that leads you to say, oh, that person has an avoidant attachment style.
And if you were to imagine the stereotypical person with daddy issues, would you be able to say, right, their attachment style is X?
No. I mean, attachment might well change depending on your relationship with your parents. But the thing is, it wouldn't be, oh, I've got issues with my daddy, therefore I'm avoidant. It doesn't follow. I mean, the relationship with your father would create your attachment style, but it wouldn't always be the same one, if you see what I mean.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I would say is, let's be very careful when we say father and daddy. I think we're gonna separate those two things as different things for today, and we're talking about. Yeah. Let's just make sure that those are separate. So would you say that daddy issues are real? Like, because it feels a little bit like one of these things that's just sort of caught fire on the internet where it's like, oh, they've got daddy issues.
Well, hang on. What are we always talking about? We're always talking about unconscious fit on this podcast, aren't we?
Yes. And what is unconscious fit?
So unconscious fit is what couples have when they recognise unconsciously, so they're not aware of this, but something in them recognises something in their partner which reminds them of a previous relationship, usually with a parent. And so then they now want to put right whatever was wrong in that relationship through this new relationship. So they're going to do it again. So, I mean, Freud used to go on and on and on about reenacting your traumas. And so this is an example of reenacting your traumas. And so if you had an absent daddy...
Don't say daddy. No.
If you had which way round am I supposed to do it? I'm confused. An absent father. So if you had an absent father...
Yes, yeah.
Not daddy.
Daddy is, when we talk about daddy, that's the bedroom daddy. Separate daddy. In my eyes, very separate daddies.
So confusing.
Yes. Father versus daddy. Okay, sorry. So we're talking about, so if you had a father who's not around.
Who wasn't around very much.
Yeah.
then you might look for somebody who was going to be very attentive and there and validate you and all of that sort of thing. But what tends to happen is that you get involved with somebody who seems very attentive and always there, and then they get a job in Dubai and they're never at home. You know?
So essentially you do, and
so you reenact it.
Yeah. And because of the honeymoon phase and hormones and stuff, and because it's all unconscious, you think this person's perfect, but actually you don't realize that actually unconsciously you are detaching yourself to someone who's very similar to. I
mean, there are people who would say, right, they know that they have issues. They know that they feel, you know, they lost their father. Not their dad. They lost their father young or something like that, or their father wasn't around very much, or they felt they didn't have a good relationship or something like that. And then they might go out and knowingly, consciously be looking for older men who take care of them, maybe, you know, give them money or look after them, buy them presents or something like that. So that's more sugar daddy, isn't it?
Is this the sort of thing you need to address in sex therapy or counselling or anything?
Yeah.
Have you seen anyone with daddy issues?
Well, so pretty much everybody that you see has got some issue with a parent. It's not necessarily that there's an issue, if you see what I mean, that there's something that's ruining their lives and they need to take it to therapy. But when you think about the way you've been brought up, I mean, I should think most people, there's something that wasn't perfect. I mean, most of us would say that. You know, you have a parent who thinks they're very helpful, and then another, you know, and their children may find they're intrusive, or somebody who thinks they're constantly there and the child thinks they're never there. You don't know. So most people have issues. But when people are thinking specifically, oh, that person's got daddy issues, if they've got issues, then there's probably something that they're repeating. So this isn't just one relationship where they actually do the work and put right the thing that was wrong in their past through the relationship. It's something that they keep repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating.
And so essentially what you're saying there is everyone has the capacity for daddy issues and probably in some way will, regardless of whatever happens.
Well, yeah, or mummy issues or anything. But I think if we're thinking in terms of something that you label somebody, then you're looking at something that people would probably notice. Whereas for a lot of us, the issues we have are not so obvious. They're being played out, but they're not obvious to the rest of the world. Whereas somebody who keeps going for older men, who keeps looking for people who'll take care of them, who expects to be looked after, you know, that you'd maybe say, okay, well, they're doing this over and over again and they're not interested in anybody who doesn't do those things. So,
And is that something that needs to be fixed?
Not necessarily. If it's all right, it's all right, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's daddy issues done and dusted.
I'm sure someone's going to tell us, no, it's not. That is something else.
No, I think that sounds about right. I mean, what the problem is, they might talk about, I think what a lot of people talk about is now having daddy issues is a code word for being into saying daddy in the bedroom, you know, and it's all that sort of stuff. But this is why I made the distinction, because in my head, having father issues is very different to doing the daddy thing in the bedroom. The daddy thing in the bedroom, I just think is like, if you call someone daddy, that's just essentially you being like, you're in control. It's like a power thing. It's not actually you're going, you're my dad, and I'm imagining my dad having sex with me. Because I do think that's a bit different. But I think actually that's it's just a shorthand way of saying something that I think is probably quite in at the moment, which is a sort of like dominant whole genre of sex.
Ooh, it gives me the ick. Ugh. Well,
I know, and we're gonna have to talk about that as well, because we've actually got a question. I think we're gonna answer in the future about it, because it just seems that everyone is sort of into that sort of thing at the moment.
Are they?
Well, we'll talk about it then. But essentially, we've got a question from someone saying lots of people are into it. Lots of people think I'm boring for not wanting to be into it because I'm into more quote unquote vanilla or loving, slow, tender stuff. And particularly girls think I'm really boring, and because I'm a big guy, that they expect me to be like that, and I'm not. And I wonder whether it's things like 50 Shades of Grey, which have a lot to answer for, maybe, about popularising this sort of thing, but I don't know.
Well, 50 Shades is so not what kink and BDSM is actually about, and it's not safe. The film, I mean, it's not what people actually do.
All the books.
It's just they're just fantasy. Yeah, fine. That's a great fantasy to get off on. those books, but they're not safe. I mean, absolutely not. There's no consent. The woman gets to sign a form or something, but it's not proper ongoing. It's not what we would understand.
Checking in. No, exactly. It's consent. Yeah. But there you go. Well, that's something to whet your appetite for when we answer that question. How would I diagnose myself with daddy issues? Is there any things that I could look out for?
Why do you want to diagnose anything? Why do you want to label and pathologise anyway? Don't be so tabloid.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that should I be worried if I've got daddy issues? If I'm like, shit, I think I am going for a lot of older men. Should I think to myself, damn, I do think I've got daddy issues?
Well, if it was doing you harm, then I guess, yeah. But if it's not doing you any harm and you're enjoying it, what's the problem?
The problem is that other people keep going, wow, you seem like you have serious daddy issues.
Oh, they can fuck off.
Perfect. That's the answer I wanted. I don't think you could have given a better answer. That's the perfect way to end this part of the podcast, I think. We'll see you in part 2 with your sex and relationship questions and more right after this.
Bye.
It's the mailbag. Send Kate your queries to podcast@hatch.com. It's the mailbag. Send Kate your queries. Podcast@hatch with 2 T's.
Hello there. I have a query for Kate. I would like to know when the real sex education mailbag starts.
The real sex education mailbag starts right now.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the Real Sex Education Mailbag, where we answer the questions you sent in to us on Twitter and Instagram at RealSexEdPod and on email into podcasts@hatchet.com. Mum, the first question we have for you today is from a fellow mum, and they ask, my daughter has told me she is going to have labiaplasty. How do I convince her this is a bad idea? Firstly, Mum, what is labiaplasty?
So it's trimming the labia, the inner labia of the vulva, so the lips, so that they are neater, if you want them to be neater, because they come in a wide variety of shapes and sizes. And I think maybe some people have seen people on porn or in photographs who have very neat labia and think that that's normal. But actually, there's a huge variety, and some people have one lip bigger than the other, or one hangs down and the other one doesn't, or sometimes they're very small, sometimes they're very big. They vary an awful lot. And some people want to have the standard issue, if you like, the ones that they've seen on porn or whatever. So I think what this mum is concerned about is that this is not necessary surgery. And so I understand why she might want to talk to her daughter about it. But she hasn't said how old her daughter is. And it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, obviously, if she's young, then her mum can maybe have a say in this and maybe control what happens. But if she's an adult, it's not going to happen, is it? She's going to just do what she feels like.
Is it dangerous, labiaplasty?
Well, all surgery is dangerous, isn't it? I mean, an anaesthetic's dangerous, so there's a risk of bleeding, things like that. But I guess plastic surgeons probably would say it's pretty run of the mill. But it's not necessary. That's the point. And once you start, I guess a lot of mums feel once you've started down that route, what will it be you want to change next? And it's just sad that people feel that they have to do that, I guess. And is
that going to bring real happiness to you if you do get this done?
Well, I don't know. I know people who've had it done and who say it really did bring real happiness to them. So, I mean, if it's something you have a hang up about and there's a way of fixing it, I guess they'd say that's a really great thing. As a mum, I guess I would think, oh, no, don't do that to your beautiful body. Don't. But I feel like that about anything you do to your body, so.
yeah, it's true. I remember when I got my earring.
Oh, don't. Broke my heart.
Yeah, I know. So I got an earring. I remember I got the first one there, and that lasted about 4 hours because I immediately came back to your house and you were absolutely fuming up the wall. And then we couldn't get it out. And then we were like, there were tears. It was a nightmare. And then the one that I got up there lasted a lot longer until it was like horrendously infected. I really want to get it done again though, because it looks sick.
No, it didn't. It looked ridiculous.
It looked so good. It looked so good. As if
someone had hammered a nail into your ear.
That's what I had done. That was the vibe I was going for. Anyway, what can we say to this mum, though, about what can we give her in her arsenal to obviously not be like, you cannot get this surgery if her daughter's old enough, but what can we say to her to get her daughter to maybe reconsider?
So, I mean, if their lines of communication are open, then I guess they can have a really good conversation where she asks her why she wants it done. Maybe she needs to understand why it's so important. I mean, if I was a mum, I might also be worried about whether someone else was coercing her into doing it. That's a possibility. So that would be something to investigate. But I guess all you can do is say, you know, is there something that you feel really concerned about? Is there some reason why you feel there's something unusual? I mean, she might want to show her some pictures of the wide variety of vulvas there are.
On the wallofvaginas.com or whatever?
Oh, the Great Wall of Vagina is a really good opportunity, because the Great Wall of Vagina is sort of plaster vulvas that were taken from real people, and it's a great 100 vulvas, and they're all so different. But there are lots of pictures online on sites which are not porn sites, which are education sites.
Yeah, there's NHS, I think, has a big one as well. Yeah,
so that's worth having a look at and just talking to her. But I mean, if she's going to do it, it's better to be supportive. But this is the sort of thing that is really, really awful. That's really difficult for mums, because any little change to your beautiful child is obviously a blow in the heart.
Exactly. All right, let's move on. Our next question is from Anonymous, who says, I'm 17 and just started having sex for the first time. My girlfriend is more experienced than me and says I come too soon. I can only last about 5 minutes, sometimes less. What can I do?
Well, I'm wondering how experienced your partner actually is, because 5 minutes is perfectly reasonable. It's quite a long time, really. You would only consider someone to have a problem if they ejaculate before they penetrate or immediately as soon as they do, so that there's virtually no thrusting at all. Some people ejaculate sooner than they want to, and that causes them distress. And there are exercises you can do to try and last longer. So you can recognise what's called the point of inevitability, when it's impossible to stop yourself from climaxing. Some people can't recognise that point, and people with early ejaculation do tend to have difficulty recognising that point. So learning to recognise it can be really helpful. It may be that this person is new to sex, and so is very anxious, and so it's happening. But some people do just ejaculate quickly. I mean, for some people, it's just something they do. There are anaesthetics you can get to slow things down, so it's worth maybe talking to your GP about that. But it doesn't need to be a problem, because it's not all about sex, and I think focusing on it is probably only going to make it worse. I mean, sex therapy is obviously a possibility. Some people do approach sex therapists for help with this, and we do offer it. Funny thing is, I mean, some people actually take antidepressants. SSRI antidepressants also slow you down a bit. So again, worth talking to your GP and experimenting to see what works for you. But it doesn't help when you have a partner who's critical. That's for sure.
Well, that's I guess the two parts of this question. And what I will say on the first part from my end is what you said before, is that point of no return, maybe it's worth going away yourself and, you know, when you are masturbating or whatever, try and work out what that point is and get to that point and then try stopping and then starting again. And that's what I believe is called edging. So also you're going to maybe have a more fun orgasm when you do anyway as well. In
sex therapy, they called it a stop-start exercise or experiment. And actually, if you do that, you can have a much more intense orgasm at the end of it.
Well, there we go. But then we come to the second part of this question, which is, I'm 17, started having sex for the first time. My girlfriend's more experienced than me and says I come too soon. I just fear that this is a bit like...
There's more to this than meets the eye.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, one of the reasons that sex therapists like to see people with their partner is because the dynamic between the partner is often exacerbating the problem or causing it even. I mean, he probably wouldn't be thinking that he was coming too soon if she wasn't telling him he was coming too soon, because he might well be satisfied with 5 minutes. 5 minutes is enough. She sounds like someone who isn't very experienced and thinks she ought to be able to climax herself through thrusting, which isn't possible for a lot of people. And for women, the climaxing through intercourse doesn't always happen regularly, or if at all, ever. So there's a lot more to it than just having intercourse. So she may not know that, and she may think he ought to be able to go on for a lot longer, which could be a problem as well, going on for too long. But nobody would say 5 minutes is unusual or something to worry about at all.
Because I swear before, when we talked about this, you mentioned that the average is like 2 minutes or something, or 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, not even that long.
So actually 5 is like you're smashing the average, you're doubling the average.
Well, it depends on the research you read, because some research says a minute.
So basically, question asker, choose your research and show it to this girl.
But anything like, between 1 and 10 minutes is within normal range. And then once you get over about 10 minutes, you know, that is starting to get into going on for quite a long time. So if she thinks he should be able to keep at it for half an hour, I would suggest she's not very experienced, actually, or she's only experienced people who have a problem in the other direction.
Yeah, I just wonder whether hopefully the way that your girlfriend is phrasing it isn't in a mean way, because in this I just instantly interpret this is in a mean way, and you're like, oh, I've got to do this to please her.
But it sounds like the girlfriend's more experienced in watching porn than in
maybe
practice,
where people think that, you know, going for longer equals better sex, but doesn't necessarily. Maybe this person needs to think, okay, maybe the sex isn't the best it could be, or I'm not being fully fulfilled. Is it because I want my partner to go longer? Maybe. Or is it because there's other things that we can be doing as well that I would prefer? Right, well, that's all we have time for this week. Thank you so much again for sending in your questions. Please do keep them coming in. We absolutely love them. They don't have to be personal as well. They can be just general queries. So, you know, obviously today we talked about daddy issues. If you want to ask something about that, so be it. Send them into podcast@hattrick.com or our Instagram and Twitter page. Again, we're Real Sex Ed Pod. Also, make sure you're subscribed to wherever you're listening to this right now, so you can be the first to get more real sex education when we return next week. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to The Real Sex Education, which is hosted by Diggory Waite and Cate Campbell. The show is produced by Diggory Waite, and the executive producer is Claire Broughton. The Real Sex Education is a Hat Trick podcast.
This podcast is based on the real-life relationship between Diggory Waite and his mother, accredited sex therapist Cate Campbell. The show is therefore inspired by, but otherwise unrelated to, the TV show Sex Education. But yes, Diggory does wish his mother was played by Gillian Anderson.